My name is Mike. This is Sam. We're with Agent.ai. We're going to do some fun stuff today. Got a chance to talk to many of you before we got started. You're all in the right place. We're going to do some hands-on agent building today. We have a fun contest, and it's going to be a blast. So when we think about building agents, the first thing that we think about does not have to do with writing code. It doesn't even have to do with the process of how the agent works. It has everything to do with who the agent is for, who are the people that it's for. Start with the people. And then what problem do those people have that your agent is going to solve? And once you have a really firm set of footing on who your agent is going to be for and what it is going to do, and hopefully those are both focused statements, by the way, only then should you think about how it works. So when Jason went to build that agent, he didn't start with like, okay, I have this proprietary database and I need to make an API call and blah, 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 blah. That happened at some point in the journey. He started with, it's for startup founders who are looking to raise, so basically founders all the time. And the problem that it's solving is it's going to do matchmaking, right? And so like a really narrow problem and persona, that makes it a lot easier to think about how it's going to work, to develop your MVP, and then to kind of scaffold and go from there. So what I'm going to do for you in the next, 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so, is show you how Agent.ai works by building a very, very simplified version of the agent we just saw. Live software demos always go super smoothly, so wish me luck.
Who here demos live software as a startup? Like at HubSpot, we had screenshots and put it in PowerPoint presentations and then sold you the software. So go ahead.
It's a high wire act. What else are you going to live? Yeah. So to try to answer the question and apply this framework, because you're going to want to do this for the agents you build in just a moment. Who is it for? It's for founders who are fundraising. So always, haha. It's going to just take in a website and a LinkedIn to find good fit investors. So I could probably have with this agent, I could invent like a dozen inputs of things I want to ask my user. And maybe when this agent grows up and begins to live a full life, it will grow into that. But to start, for my minimum viable agent, I'm going to strip down all of that. I'm going to go as bare bones as possible. I'm just going to have it say, what's your website and what's your LinkedIn? And I'm going to use those assets to feed the agent the context it needs to do its matchmaking and find good fit investors. So I just kind of wandered into it, but that starts to speak to the process, right? We're going to ask for two inputs, a website URL and a LinkedIn URL. We're going to go scrape some content from that to give that to our LLM call, to give that to the AIs, right, to do its thing. We're going to have a prompt with some of that scraped content in it. And then for the output, I'm not going to send you an email or create a Google Doc or create a PowerPoint or something like that. I'm just going to shove it on the screen because that's the easiest way to do it. Remember, I'm taking the inspiration from Jason's agent that we just looked at, and I'm tearing it all the way down to the simplest possible thing to build something fast, to demonstrate the process we want you all to go through, have a big idea, and start really, really small as you get into building this.
If this seems very basic, good, right? The whole point is that building agents should be easy and straightforward. And Mike has this great one-liner that AI agents are just software that uses AI. It's nothing more than that. It's not, some weird mystical thing. It's, can you think logically, but also use AI models that can help you do things that you don't have to specifically instruct them to do.
Cool. So I'm onto Agent.ai. You should also go to Agent.ai and make an account and stuff. Do not do that right now. Pay attention to me because you're going to need to do this in a second. So pay attention to what I'm actually doing. You can make your account later. But after you've made an account, you can then click on the agent builder in the upper right. That'll take you to a list of all the agents you've ever made. If it's your first time on the platform, you'll see a couple starter agents you can kind of click into and clone and play around with. Those are good little playgrounds to understand how it works. For me, I've made a bajillion agents, most of which are just, messing around. So that's what I see here.
Also, he has an admin account. So if you see an orange button, just pretend you didn't.
Yeah.
We are constantly adding new features. In a couple months, we will explain what an expert agent is, but pay no attention to that, please.
Yes. So to get started building an agent on Agent.ai, I'm going to click Create Agent. That pops up this modal. And like I said, there's some templates you can kind of play around with and work with. But for now, I'm just going to start from scratch. I recommend when you go to build an agent, you too start from scratch because it's going to give you kind of the most blank page, which is actually good. Because if you've done the thought process about who it's for, what it's going to solve, and then kind of bare bones process, you're ready to start slotting in your steps. So I'm going to go build an agent, and the first thing it takes me to is this settings screen. And so this kind of is just the information about my agent. I'm not going to spend very much time here. What I'm going to do is just, give it a name. And I can add a description or a video, like a hype reel for my agent later on once the thing actually exists. On the trigger tab, we have all the different ways that agents can be triggered in Agent.ai. When you go to build your first agent and you build the simplest possible thing first, please do me a favor, keep it on manual only. And then once you kind of get it working, think if you want to make your agent more portable. But agents can be triggered based off of user schedules, like every day, send me something. They can be triggered via email, so you can work with them back and forth via email. They can be triggered by a few things in HubSpot. And for those of you who are more technical, they can be triggered programmatically by either post URL or here's like the curl code if this means something to you. If this doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry. You don't need to use this stuff to get a lot out of Agent.ai.
Example of the difference, manual versus scheduled. I have a scheduled agent that every morning reads all my newsletter articles, listens to all the podcasts, looks at my calendar to see who I'm meeting that day, and generates an audio overview for me of like what I actually need to know from those things, who I'm meeting that day, what I should be talking to them about. That's like a thing that I want every day. I don't want to trigger it manually, as opposed to like finding an investor. I really hope I'm not doing that every day. So that's like, you can just think about, is this something I want on an ongoing cadence, or is this something that I want people to be able to use on an ongoing basis? So
yeah. It's a cool agent use case. For those of you who are trying to get on the Wi-Fi and maybe it's not working, try the password, try ramp, then the number 1. It's on the guest ramp Wi-Fi SSID thing.
I figured they'd all hacked the Wi-Fi already. It's Tech Week.
It's a very talented group. Yeah. All right. So we talked about settings. We talked about triggers. Now let's actually go build the agent. Like I said, this is going to take about 10 minutes to go from 0 to like actually working agentic AI, but this thing is going to be really, really simple. Minimum viable agent. So most of the kind of logic, if you will, of an agent in Agent.ai lives on this action screen. So on this screen here, we can slot in ways to gather input, ways to create output. This is where we're going to put in our LLM calls, all that kind of stuff. When I start off, there's nothing here. So we're going to start by adding an action, and this is going to pull up all of the tools, if you will, in the agentic toolkit. So there's ways I can gather user input. This is like, building a form, basically. There's ways I can get data from various places that are kind of public or semi-public, places like Twitter or websites or YouTube or LinkedIn. There's some stuff I can do with HubSpot. There's ways I can use AI. Duh, maybe you kind of expected this. There's various processes like if statements or for loops. If those mean something to you, great. If not, that's cool too. There's various ways to create output. Right? So I can create output to the screen by showing the user output. I can send a message, which is an email. I can create a Google Doc or a blog post. And then for those of you who are more technical or more curious, under the advanced tab are sort of what we call the sleeping giants of Agent.ai. It's just a really cool shit. We can call serverless functions in Node and Python. We can invoke web APIs to call other services. We can do a few other like really interesting, really cool things, including calling other agents on the Agent.ai platform. So when you go to build your own agents and enter the contest and get your face on the NASDAQ sign tomorrow, think about all of these capabilities and how you might blend them to solve for your people and the problem you're focused on.
I'm from Florida. He's from New England, and he keeps confusing Times Square with the NASDAQ sign. So anyways.
Yeah, I should know better, huh?
2 interesting things. One, you'll notice that we have a lot of integration with HubSpot. We are not part of HubSpot. We are cousins-ish. Trust me, it's as confusing to them as it is to us. But we have a deep integration with them. We're independent because we want to kind of be the Switzerland. So we're going to add integrations for everything that you have. The amount of money you have, the technical skill, but also the technology you use, that stack, shouldn't determine whether or not you can be part of the AI future. So like, they've got a brilliant AI team doing AI things with HubSpot. That's not our goal. If you happen to work at some company and you want to talk to us about getting your tools in here, let us know. So make that available. Also, invoking other agents, I think, is the sleeping giant here, because being able to have your agent use another agent that has learned and has experience and is customized can help you do things a lot faster. So like somebody built an agent in just a workshop that took customer support tickets, reviews, and social media comments and stripped out the meanness because customers can be mean sometimes. They're always right. That doesn't mean they're always nice. But preserved the core of what they were trying to say. And so now if you go and build something that's like, I want to generate automatic ticket sentiment analysis summary, something like that, you could invoke that agent and be like, cool, let's not screw the mental health of my support team while I'm trying to do that. So as you're thinking about what you're going to build, again, like AI for good is an act of compassion and generosity. Think about like what might be useful to a lot of other people.
Cool. All right, so let's get to building this agent. It's going to be the simplified version of the matchmaker that we were seeing before. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask my user for some input. So I'm going to start by adding in a user input field. I'm going to ask them for a URL. There's a bunch of different types of inputs. This is basically a form builder. It's the simplest way to think about this. And I'm going to ask the user, what is the URL of your company, right? Just give me that URL. And then what Agent.ai is going to do is it's going to present that in a form field, and it's going to take whatever the user gives us and put it in a variable. So variables in Agent.ai are really kind of a central concept, and they're really powerful, but they basically give you ways to store and transport information around your agent. So we're going to get the URL of the company, maybe www.agent.ai, and we're going to store that in a variable called company URL. I'm going to hit save, and this action is going to slot its way into the agent builder. So that's the first action in this agent. And we can even see on the right-hand side, it's like starting to take shape. It doesn't do much yet, but it's like starting to exist, which is cool. We're going to add a second way for a user to give us some information. So I'm going to add another user input field. It's going to be another URL, but this time I want to ask for their LinkedIn. Because the way this agent's going to work is it's going to basically go out and scrape the content of the startup site. It's then going to pull the content from their LinkedIn. It's going to munge it all together in an LLM call and do its matchmaking based off of that. So I'm going to ask the user, what's your LinkedIn URL? And then I'm going to store whatever they give us for that in another variable called LinkedIn URL. So you're starting to get the picture maybe of how this platform works. We can have these actions use variables to move information around. So at this point, we've got the URLs for these things, but we need to actually go scrape the content. And so I'm going to insert two more actions. The next one is going to be to scrape the website. And then after that, to go scrape the content from LinkedIn. Because LLMs don't really have internet access. When you go to chatgpt.com and you ask it to do something online, it says searching web. The core LLM doesn't have internet access, so we need to give it the information that it needs. That's why I'm going to do this scraping stuff. So I'm going to use the next tab over, get data. And I can get data from a variety of places, like we talked about before. The first thing I'm going to do is go grab some web page content, so I can grab my startup's website content. So because I'm going to feed that into my LLM call. So I got this tool here for web page content. I'm going to insert a variable of company URL. And then I am going to grab the actual homepage, the one page of this site. And I'm going to store the content of that site in a new variable called company page content. So now I've got the URL of my company, but I also have the actual content of the site. Then the last thing I'm going to do as we get ready to make our actual AI call in here is get one more piece of data, which is to get the LinkedIn profile details. And I'm going to toss in the LinkedIn URL and do something very similar. I'm going to add in the variable for the actual content that lives at that URL. So now my agent has 4 steps. It's using a few different tools, and it's going to ask the user. We can actually even see it starting to take shape on the right. It's going to ask the user for 2 URLs. And then under the hood, it's going to go out and grab the content from those URLs. You guys with me so far? Okay, great. This is going well, Sam.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
The good thing about Tech Week, as opposed to like the American Agricultural Association, which I also spoke at, is you all understand it's easy to make things powerful. It's hard to make powerful things easy to use. We're working on like making this even easier, but you all kind of understand to just think methodically, just like you would if you were designing a workflow for lead nurturing or something like that. And just it's software that uses AI.
Yeah. All right. So now we're actually ready to make our AI call. We've got our user input. We've transmuted that into the actual content that lives at those URLs. So we can go to the Use AI part of this ribbon up here, and we can see the options we have to use AI. Like Sam said, there's a couple of things that are kind of in the laboratory you're not going to see, like these orchestration things. Watch out for those a month from now. What you're going to see when you go in there is ways to use Gen AI or an LLM that's going to be text-based. There's image stuff, there's some video stuff, and audio stuff. So it's basically by modality. For this, we're just going to use Gen AI. And when I click into this, there's a couple of cool things I want to call out. For those of you who are model nerds, Agent.ai has basically every major model, all for free. You can access them through this UI. There's also programmatic ways to do this that we'll show you in a second. You can see it in the documentation at docs.agent.ai. But we've got all of the OpenAI models. We've got all the Anthropic stuff, including like Opus and the new stuff. There's Gemini for those of you who like larger context windows or like bad responses from LLMs. There's Perplexity. There's some old stuff. You can even play with DeepSeek and Meta if you want to get weird. If this whole spiel doesn't mean anything to you and you don't care, you can also select Auto Optimize, which will just leave it up to Agent.ai what LLM to use based off your prompt. That's actually what I'm going to do for this to keep things simple. So in this kind of larger like field here, this is where I actually put my prompt. I can use variables like I showed you before by clicking insert variable. So here's all the variables my agent has already created. There's also some variables about my user, like in this case, Mike, me, my first name, my last name, stuff that's like in my Agent.ai profile. I can do some secret management or snippets if I have, other things that I want to include for some particular purpose. I'm not going to make you watch me write a prompt because that would be like the most painful session at New York Tech Week. So instead, I've pre-written this thing, but I will kind of take you through the contents of it just to kind of show a couple cool things in Agent.ai. So I said a moment ago that variables are really powerful and central. This is kind of how variables come to light and do a lot of heavy lifting for you as you use and build agents. So you can see what's going on here. I've got my prompt, you're an expert startup advisor, blah, blah, blah. But then there's a couple of these variables in here. So if you've ever done like email marketing, you do hi first name, or you've done a mail merge or something like that, you use variables. And when the thing actually runs, it doesn't say first name, it says hi Mike in the email that comes to me, right? And so very similar concepts here. These variables will get substituted when this thing runs with the value of those variables. So when we make our call out to our LLM is say find 10 potential investors that are a good fit, it won't say double bracket company URL. The handlebar notation will go away. Instead, it will say whatever the user gives us, right? So these will get substituted in for the values. It's like Mad Libs. And then the actual LLM call will be a fully complete, fully formed thing with our user input.
Anybody ever get an email that says hello first name? That's somebody who screwed this up.
Yeah. Don't screw it up. Good advice. All right. And so it's got a couple of things prompts have, right? It's got kind of, my goal here, things to avoid, my output kind of requirements. But there's one more thing I actually need to give it. Who's been following along closely enough to know what's missing from this? What's been scraped? Who said that?
All right, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, we can't get a t-shirt back.
Find me later.
I'll get you later.
Sorry again, sir.
So we basically need to add in that context. Yes. And if you were thinking that, yes to you too, because I know many of you were thinking it. So what we need to do is add in all of that context, and a good place to do it is down below. We're basically just going to feed this thing our last two variables, which are founder background and our company homepage content. And when this thing actually runs, what'll happen is this will substitute a pretty chunky blob of text in for this little variable, and the actual prompt will be much longer that gets made out. So we're done with our prompt, and the output of this thing, I'm going to call matchmaking output. Oops. So everything that I get back from this LLM, actually, I'm going to select something just so it runs faster, but the output that I get back from this, everything I get back from the LLM is going to go into this variable. I asked the LLM to output its results as a table in HTML. So this variable is actually going to store like a big blob of HTML in it for me. So again, variables are really cool and they can store a lot. So we're going to hit save, and we're going to do one last thing, which is we need to actually show that output to a human. Right now, this agent is doing a bunch of stuff in its memory, like terrific, but there's no like evidence of its work, right? So we're going to add one last action in. We're going to go to the Create Output tab, and we're going to keep this thing really simple because it's just a minimum viable agent. I can build from there, and I'm just going to show the user some output. So again, kind of fields to fill in. I can use variables, and what I'm going to do is go get the variable that I got back from my LLM call, matchmaking output. I'm going to plop that in here. The format, I'm going to leave up to the machines. It's HTML, so it should see it. I'm going to hit save. All right. That was an 11-minute build of an agent that, cross your fingers, works. So I'm going to publish my changes. I'm going to click run, and that's going to take me kind of out of the builder and into the, I guess, user kind of, view here. I'm going to give it a URL. I'm going to give it a LinkedIn profile, and it's going to like say that it got that. Cool. And now I'm going to hit go. And we know, what's happening under the hood here, right? It's going out, it's scraping those two URLs, it's taking all the content from that, it's making the LLM call. The LLM call is actually like, the prompt is pretty chunky because it's putting in all of this content. And what we can do is we can look under the hood by clicking on the dev console to see where this thing is at. So we were like, it's doing some of its scraping right now. It's completed the user input, it's doing its scraping. Live software demos are really cool, like we said before. It grabbed all the text. If we want to see what it actually got back, we can go look at the JSON in here in case you want to like see what it actually grabbed. It's pretty gnarly, but not a problem for an LLM to go figure out. It's doing the same thing with LinkedIn. So this is like actually the words I have on my LinkedIn about, I don't know, what I get up to at work. And then it's making the LLM call, and it did the output. And what do you know? It actually has some output. So this thing took, what, 26 seconds to run. Maybe if I had a shorter prompt or used a different...
Or didn't use the most expensive model for no reason. Thank you.
I do what I can. I could do something to tune it. But remember, the whole goal of this little demo was to get the smallest possible working agent. We took inspiration from what Jason built with the Startup Matchmaker that's really feature complete and allows you to do all these things and uses proprietary data and blends it with public data. I built the crappiest possible version in 10 minutes. But, through the magic of AI, it's actually not that bad. Like, this thing is sort of good in some ways even. Like, it's recommending, some not like household name VCs. It's got like some similar port codes. It links the intake form, which is very helpful. I told it to do that in the prompt. And it has a little justification about why, it actually has that. So for 10 minutes, it's pretty great. I think, a couple of years ago, this is something you would pay an intern to do, and it would take them a few days or weeks. So I'm actually pretty happy with my little 10-minute build. It just took kind of a couple of different inputs, a little bit of gathering data, a kind of, tuned prompt, if you will, and then an output. But this agent's actually quite useful, and it's pretty useful for founders. I'm probably not going to win the Times Square, signage with it, but it's actually pretty good.
Another thing, think about what's a moment of magic you can create for yourself that it might just be something you do on an ongoing basis, but that really made me happy that they had that capability. So go out there, focus on it. We'll be around for questions, and hopefully you now think this is so easy that you're wondering why you spent 90 minutes watching us do it.
It was only 60, but yeah. All right. So thank you all for coming. We cannot wait to see what you build. Let's hear it for you.
Let's be about it.